RI Academy Podcast One Student, One Creativity. RI Academy Podcast One Student, One Creativity.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, here I am, M.Pd, teacher of English at Junior High School Number 1 Batang Harilko, Musi Banyuasin Region. I would like to share my experience of implementing podcasts in my class activity as the innovative approach for language skill and beyond. By doing podcasts, it effectively increased motivation and engagement, building a sense of collaboration and community, capturing authentic learning experience, and strengthening students' communication skill.
RI Academy Podcast One Student, One Creativity.
To the RE Academic Podcast, One Student, One Creativity. I'm your host, Masito, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for today's episode. We'll be talking about a topic that's close to our hearts, empowering English language teaching or ELT through podcasts, innovative approaches for language skills and beyond. For our class teaching material development with the lecturers Dr. Rita Inderawati, M.Pd, and Dr. Eryansyah, M.A. Ph.D. Today, we're going to talk about what makes this book interesting. Podcast has become an incredible tool in education, especially for teaching language skills and fostering creativity. To help us delve deeper into this, I'm joined by my dear friend and co-author Ida Musirini from the Magister of Education program at the University of Sriwijaya. Ida, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Masito. I am excited to be here. Podcasts have been a game changer for us in ELT, and I'm thrilled to share our insight with the audience.
Absolutely. Before we get into the specifics, could you tell us a bit about the book we co-authored, Empowering ELT Through Podcasts, Innovative Approaches for Language Skills and Beyond?
Of course, the book is a collaborative effort between us, myself, you, Wineka Satya, and Omi Abria, under the mentorship of Dr. Rita Inderawati, M.Pd, and Dr. Eryansyah, M.A. Ph.D. It explores how podcasts can enhance the teaching and learning of English, particularly by focusing on listening skills, cultural understanding, and fostering students' creativity. We wanted to create a resource that blends theory and practice, offering teachers practical strategies to implement podcasts in their classrooms.
That's amazing, Ida. Let's talk about the core concept. Why do you think podcasts are such a powerful medium for language teaching?
Okay, that's a great question, Masito. Podcasts are versatile and accessible. They expose students to authentic language use, diverse accents, and real-world topics. Unlike traditional listening materials, podcasts are dynamic and can be tailored to students' interests. For instance, a podcast episode about global festivals can teach listening while introducing cultural awareness. This multidimensional approach makes learning more engaging and meaningful.
Well, that's so true. Speaking of engagement, one challenge teacher often faces keeping students motivated during listening activities. How can podcasts help with that?
Hmm. Podcasts naturally pique curiosity. When students listen to interesting stories or interviews, they're more likely to stay focused. Teachers can select topics that align with students' interests, like technology, sports, or even social media trends. Also, podcasts allow for creative assignments. For example, students can create their own podcast as a project. This helps develop not just a listening skill, but also speaking, critical thinking, and collaboration.
That's a fantastic idea, Ida. Creating podcasts as a classroom activity really aligns with the forces of 21st century learning, such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, right?
Yeah, exactly, Masito. And it's not just about language. Podcasts can help students build confidence and learn how to express themselves effectively. Plus, the process of scripting, recording, and editing introduce them to digital literacy skills.
Okay, yes, that's such an important point too. Now, let's dive into the how-to part. Could you share a few practical tips for teachers who want to start using podcasts in their classrooms?
Sure. Okay, here are three simple steps. Number one, start small. Begin with short, simple episodes that match your students' language proficiency. There are many free educational podcasts available online. And number two, interactive listening. Design activities around the podcast like predicting content, answering questions, or summarizing key points. And the last would be students-led projects. Encourage students to create their own podcast episodes. This can be a collaborative project where they write scripts, record, and even edit.
Those are wonderful tips, Ida. One last question before we wrap up. What's your advice for teachers who feel hesitant about using technology like podcasts?
Okay, don't worry about being perfect with technology. Start with the basic and learn along the way. Also, involve your students. They often enjoy experimenting with new tools and can help troubleshoot. Most importantly, remember that podcasts are a medium, not a goal. Focus on how they can enrich your teaching and your students' learning experience.
Wow, wise words, Ida. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you, Masito. It's been an honor to discuss this exciting topic with you.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Remember, education is a journey, and tools like podcasts can make it even more exciting. Until next time, keep exploring, creating, and inspiring. Bye.
Ah.
RI Academy Podcast One Student, One Creativity. RI Academy Podcast One Student, One Creativity.
Every year, millions of children, some as young as 11 and 12, are forced into marriage. In fact, more than 12 million girls under 18 marry before they're ready, disrupting their education, health, and future. Your marriage is not just a personal issue, it's a global crisis that affects entire communities. It's crucial we address this now to protect young lives and create a future where every child can grow, learn, and thrive. Through this podcast to find a solution from the education practitioner.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Academy podcast, where we explore solutions to the challenges young people face today. I'm your host, Nico, and today we are diving into an important topic, the rising issue of young marriage among students and how reading can be a powerful tool to address this. It's made for completing our last adventure on teaching material development with the lecturer, Dr. Rita Inderawati, M.Pd, and Mr. Eryansyah, Ph.D. Joining me is our special guest, Rina, an educator and master student from Teaching, Training, and Education Faculty, cooperation with program with Musi Banyuasin. Welcome, Bu Rina.
Okay, yes, thank you so much, Sir Nico. Yes, I'm thrilled here to be in talk about our crucial issue.
Okay, let's start with some context, Bu Rina. Young marriage among students have been a growing concern, particularly in schools. From your experience, Bu Rina, why is this happening, and what are some of the consequences?
Yes, Sir Nico, this is a great question. So young marriage often stem from a mix of socioeconomic pressures, lack of educations, cultural norms, and also sometimes it's about misinformations about relationship. And the consequences can be severe, disrupted educations, financial instability, and limited career opportunities for young couples. So this challenge creates cycles of poverty and hinder personal growth.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a two cycle to break. So where does reading come into play as a potential solution, Bu?
Yeah, so reading actually it is an incredible powerful, Sir Nico. So it's not only educates but also broaden perspectives. When students read a book, particularly those that address life skills, personal developments, and the consequences of early marriage, they gain insight and critical thinking skills. So books can inspire young people to dream beyond societal expectations and equip them with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
Okay, now could you share an example of a book or genre that might help students in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. For example, novels like I Am Malala or The Kite Runner showcase the importance of educations and the struggles young people face in traditional settings. So self-help books like The Seven Habits of Highly Effective Teens also teach critical thinking and goal setting. So even fictional stories with strong, relatable character can empower students to envision different paths of their futures.
That's very inspiring. But how can schools and educators incorporate reading into their strategies to address young marriage?
Yeah, so actually, schools can start by setting up book clubs focus on themes like self-empowerment and relationships, also educations, and teachers can include relevant books in the curriculum and foster discussions around these topics. Libraries can create dedicated sections for books that deal with life skills and personal developments. Most importantly, educators need to encourage open conversations where students feel safe to share and reflect on what they have read. Like that's
Okay, those are excellent ideas. But what about students who are naturally drawn to reading? How do we engage them?
Yeah, yes. And about that point, so it's very great point, yes, Nico. So to engage reluctant readers, schools can use interactive approaches like book-based role plays, storytelling sessions, or even like multimedia adaptations of popular books. Sometimes just finding the right book, one that resonates with a student's experiences, can spark a lifelong love of reading. So mentors or peer groups can also play a role in promoting reading as a fun and rewarding activity.
Okay, that's so very insightful, Bu Rina.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, do you have any final message for our listeners actually?
Um, yes, Sir Nico. So reading is not just about academics. It's about empowerments and transformations. So if we want to solve issues like young marriage in school, so we need to equip students with the tools to think critically, dream big, and make informed choices. So books can be the tool. So let's encourage every young person to pick up a book and start their journey of self-discovery.
Okay, well, Bu Rina, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. And to our listener, remember that every page turn is a step toward a brighter future. Don't forget to subscribe to RI Academy podcast for more inspiring conversations. Until next time, keep reading and keep growing.
RI Academy Podcast, One Student, One Creativity. RI Academy Podcast, One Student, One Creativity. RI Academy Podcast, One Student, One Creativity.